Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage PTC'13 Program Committee Co-Chair and Telx SVP of Cloud Services and Strategy, Joe Weinman, and our keynote panelists.
Good morning, everyone. Some of you have asked, why do I have two speaker badges on? The reason is this is considered stereo. All right, yeah, thank you for laughing. So we have a great panel coming up right now that we're going to cover something that is a major topic for the conference concerning the cloud and its impact on carriers and this emerging world of competition. So there's actually a few sessions today that are pretty exciting on this, and it goes with the theme of the conference, which is capacity, capability, and collaboration. And so the idea is that traditionally, of course, the conference began more as a capacity event, things like bandwidth and routes and things like that. And then as the industry has matured, we've moved into capabilities, whether it's things like portals or flexible provisioning or SDN. And then collaboration is intended to be a catch-all term, which really focuses on a few major things, which includes value-added services like collaboration services in the cloud and so forth, but also this notion of collaboration and perhaps in some cases co-opetition between the traditional providers as well as the emerging over-the-top players, and how we'll all sort of learn to love and live together in peace and hopefully take advantage of an expanding market. So I have a distinguished panel, and I think they should be ready to come out on stage now. So please join me in welcoming the distinguished panel, and we'll do introductions shortly. Okay, so from your right to my left, we've got Raju, Rakesh, Chandra, and Nathan, representing a broad variety of the Pacific Rim countries. And I think maybe the best way to start is by asking each of them a little bit about their current business and their current strategy and their approach to the cloud market. So, Raju, why don't I start with you?
Good morning, everyone. I'm chairman of Sify Technologies. And I'm also an executive entrepreneur coming from Silicon Valley, living in this country for 30 years. So Sify is the pioneer of internet service provider, the first private internet service provider in India. And then we also launched the first MPLS network in India. And also we launched the first Tier 3 data center in India. Now the Sify is the carrier neutral biggest ICT player, and we see the opportunities going from the cloud, going across from the infrastructure to the platforms and the software services. We see a big opportunity for the cloud across India as India is evolving into more economic trend.
Rakesh?
I'm chairman and managing director of BSNL. BSNL is the incumbent telecom service provider in the country, India, and we are one of the largest. We have about 38,000 digital telephone exchanges spread across length and breadth of the country. We have 700,000 route kilometers of optical fiber cable, and we have very strong internet infrastructure in the country. In fact, we are the market leader in India in terms of broadband market. We have more than 65% broadband market, and we have about 10 million broadband customers. So we feel that with such a strong internet infrastructure in place, we are well positioned to take advantage of the advent of cloud computing and cloud-based services and take it to the masses.
My name is Chandra Pandey. I work for a company called BTI Systems. My company is definitely looking at what is happening on the cloud side, what is required, what kind of the network is required to deliver the services from the cloud. Cloud-based services delivery is totally different than what used to happen before. That's where I come in. I joined the company almost a year back, and I put together a team defining the network infrastructure, what is needed, and doing the product to deliver the services from the network. That's my focus. My company has been working with a lot of the biggest cloud provider in the world right now. So we have learned a lot from them, what they require, and same time, all those learning plus looking into the future point of view, what is needed to deliver the services from the cloud to deliver the user experience. Because it's really critical that you don't just host the service in the cloud, but what kind of the user experience you deliver. Cloud is like a real thing. And what it means by real is there are resources sitting around there, and there is a certain way of delivering the services. If you are not careful, you figure out that there will be service outage. And then all the hype and the excitement we have about cloud will disappear. We do not want that to happen. And that's what my focus is. And I definitely work with some of the biggest cloud provider in the world, learning from them and working collaboratively. Means we are collaborating with them to deliver that user experience, because at the end, it's a service delivery. That's what matters. It's not that how much servers, storage, and the network you got. It's what you deliver through that. That's what matters, and that's what my focus is.
Nathan, thank you. So great to be here. Thank you very much to Joe and PTC. So I am the Director of Portfolio Marketing for Telstra Global, which I often like to refer to as the world's biggest startup. And what I mean by that is we have had a heritage of data and voice for more than 30 years, but we are only just getting into managed services, which is, I guess, exciting and challenging at the same time. On the one hand, it's quite challenging because you see all these other great service providers out there that are delivering a broad range of managed services. But for us, as Telstra Global, it's given us a great opportunity to see how we can blend the network and cloud computing coming together, not just as services, but actually as platforms. Because everything we're doing is trying to see how do we maximize those two key assets of the, whether it be the submarine cable systems that we own and or manage, or the data centers, but it's very much how do we sort of take these to the next level and move everything into that sort of cloud environment, providing on an end-to-end basis for our customers.
So it's an interesting mix in terms of the perspectives that you offer, right? Because you've got an incumbent, you've got a startup within an incumbent, and you've got an enabler. So maybe let's start with you, Nathan, on what you just said. So as far as your unit's responsibility within the larger Telstra, how does that strategic conflict or opportunity actually work out? How does that startup within a larger enterprise actually work, and are the goals aligned or conflicted or what?
Very interesting question.
That's why I'm the moderator.
Clearly, yes. So it's a quite interesting dynamic. We are sort of regarded as the thought challenges, I guess, within the broader Telstra Corporation. It's quite exciting for Telstra to be able to have a division that can actually go and try and identify new opportunities. So one of the things we've actually been doing is working with a number of sort of startup companies that are in the cloud space that are testing cloud technologies, whether that be in a contact center environment or security or broader communications that an incumbent might not normally want to associate themselves with, because for an incumbent in a domestic market, it's, all right, who are my top 3 key suppliers and how am I going to work with them and provide more of a solid base? Whereas what we're trying to do is push the boundaries of some of those services. So we've got this healthy tension, I guess you can call it, of trying to be able to manage the requirements of Telstra as a broader corporation, but then also trying to give us the flexibility of trying out new things. Because a great thing we're trying to do is how do we bring that innovation back into Australia? And when you're dealing with millions of customers, a great way to do that is actually have a division just to the side of that, that's having that flexibility where your customers understand that they are on the cutting edge of some of those new developments.
So, Chandra, you mentioned that there were some interesting lessons that you were trying to pull from the largest providers. What would you say are the 2 or 3 things that really have struck you as being, just amazing developments or capabilities that you're trying to bring into your capabilities and product offers?
Yeah, so as Nathan pointed out, when you go towards the cloud, the set of the network requirement is not your traditional how you did your optical as well as routers, switches, and security gears. the innovation you need to deliver the services from cloud, first of all, it's like you have to innovate at a very fast clip, but at the same time, the innovation requires the convergence. And what it means is like you do not want to be having unnecessary set of the layer and complicate the things. And that enables to enable the efficiency in your HPC, high performance compute, as well as getting your content or services down to the users. So it's really critical that when you are designing or innovating next set of the networking gears, you tie that directly with the applications. If you don't tie that with the application, because think of this, network is not a service. Service being delivered over the network is the application. So tying the applications with the network, with the like minimum layer of like complexity, not having too many gears sitting in there, like there is a dedicated gear for the routing, switching, then optical switching. Same time is going across the network. You want to have minimum like layer of complexity to reduce your latencies. Because at the end, the customer cares about is like how much of the infrastructure is needed on one side and what the service get delivered on the other side. So innovation is the key. And that innovation needed is like, as Nathan pointed out, at the fast cliff. And those things, is as soon, you can do that in the big organizations, but at the same time, you need the nimble organization, which is making the decision and moving at a very fast cliff and delivering the solution to the service provider, but getting their feedback. Does it work? If it doesn't work, go back and come back with the like fast turnaround and enable them to deliver the services. That's what matters.
So in terms of innovation, maybe Raju and Rakesh, we could talk a little bit about, you're operating in pretty broadly within the Southeast Asia region, and obviously Rakesh, you're operating in India very effectively. And so the question would be, is there anything, talking about innovation, you've leapfrogged maybe several generations and really jumped right to mobile. So what are the implications in terms of any regional differences that you're seeing, any differences maybe by market segment, or anything else in terms of how local market conditions may be playing into your overall strategy?
Yeah, Joe, the innovations, see, the way I look at it is cloud, it's not a technology disruption. It's more of, all the cloud technology, built by, large enterprises, and it's available. In my mind, the cloud is a disruption for the market and the business, the process. So the way we look at it is a country like in India, we have road cuts and fiber cuts and the power, shortage of the power. But when you're coming to the cloud, there is no excuses. See, that is what cloud does, is you have to be on the service all the time. That means if you look at it in IT, the way I look at it is coming from an IT background, carriers has to act like an IT players, and they have to reinvent themselves before the technology obsolescence. The important things like we attention in the IT, the performance. Performance, when we design a chip or design a system, we don't look at providing 10 meg to 20 meg or a couple more T1 lines. Each generation we go for a performance and we do against a benchmark. Is it we are providing a service to meeting the benchmark? Second is time to market. Time to market, in a careers, I'm attending this conference for last several years and engaging with a lot of the people. It's more of a, it's more of how many links and where we are doing analyze, those kind of things. But if you're looking at in the cloud, beyond that, you need to provide, there is a certain ways goes into the cloud. You're entering into the IT domain. And the third is you're looking at a performance and the time to market, and these are the very, very important, and the scaling, and the speed, and the quality of the service. The important thing you want to provide is the first world-class solution in a third world environment. It's very, very important. That is where I see the innovations going into the cloud for a carriers. So I think there is a lot of opportunities in the cloud. At the end of the day, it's a lot of cooperation, and there is no one service provider can provide the complete stack. And we have a lot of assets, and we have to be collaborate. It's not one success. It's all we have to be work ourselves and leverage other people in investments. And that is what I look at is a lot of innovations has to be go in this platform.
Rakesh, care to add?
Yeah, as I mentioned, India being a very large country, and government embarking upon large projects to take data services down to the bottom of the pyramid. We are laying about 500,000 root kilometers of optical fiber cable to access all the 250,000 village panchayats. So all this is going to bring a large amount of data services being made available. Coupled with that, the situation as it prevails in the country vis-a-vis power and other things, it's very critical that these data services are provided with minimum downtime. A company like BSNL, a telecom service provider like BSNL, is ideally equipped to bring the advantages of cloud services to these vast population. Also, in India, we have a very large, small and medium enterprise segment who on their own are not able to, rather it's uneconomical for them if they go for intricate IT solutions on their own. So I see cloud provides a big opportunity for them also to leverage the advantages of IT in furtherance of their business. And companies like BSNL are ideally suited to bring these cloud services in collaboration with system integrators and cloud providers to this large segment of small, medium, and micro enterprises, and increase in their business and the wealth creation.
So I'm going to actually, if I can, come back to that theme in a second. I just want to relate. I see Stefan Beckert in the audience, and Telegeography did a deep dive yesterday on everything from pricing trends to traffic growth and everything else. And to sum up an hour and a half of in-depth presentations, it's something that we sort of all know, which is that the revenue picture for traditional carrier services is not exactly exploding wildly. And so I guess the question would be to everyone on the panel, first of all, what are the implications for that in terms of if carrier revenues are essentially flat and or growth is slowing and the cloud represents the next great revenue opportunity, what is your strategy really with respect to that? And so to return to you, Rakesh, particularly in the mobile end, the challenge with the mobile providers, of course, has always been that the walled garden concept worked well for a couple, 3 years, and then now you have app stores and everything else. So what is the trick, if there is any, to monetizing the mobile cloud opportunity if you're a mobile carrier, and how do you make it all work? So it's a challenging question, but hopefully you can provide some insight.
No, it's true that revenues of telecom service providers in India are under threat. I don't know about other countries, but in India, being a hyper competitive scenario, the revenues of almost all the telecom service providers are under threat. So therefore, the voice revenues, especially the voice revenues, are falling. So all of them are looking towards data services. And then looking toward data services means all of them are trying to embrace the cloud services, right? So in addition to all other compulsions, the compulsion of revenue also is forcing carriers to go towards cloud services. And clearly they have to evolve new business models. The traditional business models are, thinking that they have to compete with the cloud providers is no more valid in the Indian scenario. So it's a kind of collaboration which is happening between cloud service providers and telecom service providers. Like our own company, BSNL, very recently we embarked upon, we established about 10 data centers, okay, all over the country in partnership with established data center service providers. We have already launched cloud services from these data centers. So telecom service providers and cloud providers, instead of competing, they are now collaborating. And I see the clear roadmap ahead that they have to collaborate for augmenting their falling revenue streams.
Anyone else want to jump in with what the pot of gold at the end of the strategic rainbow is, or might be?
Wouldn't it be great if there was a trick? I'd be selling it to everybody in the room and I'd be really rich, but that's never going to happen.
So there's no trick?
I don't think there is, but I also think it's quite interesting that we used to have this, we used to be very comfortable with the term carrier, right, that we were all carriers. But I mean, Rakesh, even you mentioned as a service provider, and I think that just represents the change that our businesses have gone through from being just traditional carriers and being quite comfortable with data and voice, and then knowing that we've had to evolve to add more value to our customers and hence deliver more services. And I actually think that the cloud is just that enabler to that next stage. I think service providers will just continue to evolve. I think that that's just in the nature of who we are and what we do. And I think it's a very exciting time, and I love that point about this collaboration between cloud providers and service providers, but it's very much an ecosystem. We have an ecosystem of application providers, of over-the-top players, of network providers, of data center providers, however you want to define it, but it's that ecosystem where everyone is now having to come together to define, right, what are these new rules of the game? How are we going to work together and define who's going to be accountable and responsible for different elements? So I would love if there was a trick, but I think it's just a fact that we need to continue to evolve what our capabilities are and who we're trying to serve.
Well, if there is a trick, it would seem to me to be that if you're an incumbent carrier and you have the opportunity to provide some sort of performance, response time, latency advantage through the deployment of a distributed fabric, as you were talking about, of data centers that are really on net, tied into that immense backhaul network that you have, then you could kind of create the foundation for this ecosystem for third-party players to come in and be advantaged, right? And so the SaaS providers are used to thinking about the network as just a utility resource that, from an end-to-end arguments basis, just says, the stupider the network, then the better it is in terms of enabling ubiquitous connectivity. But the reverse argument to that would be that with some network intelligence and flexibility and visibility and controllability, like a SDN type of concept in its broadest sense might enable, that you actually could provide differential value that would be monetizable. So do any of you see that as being something that you're working on, that it's kind of, rather than just being a vanilla provider to everyone that comes, creating some sort of differentiated service capability?
I don't think just vanilla provider is going to be successful. It's going to be more application awareness. So careers, it's not just providing the links, and understanding the application awareness is very, very important to provide as a cloud. In my mind, cloud is more of a cooperative venture. It's not just a telecom provider or a service cloud provider. It is there is enough pie to all contribute, and also at the same time, everybody can take a leverage of other people's investments. And people has to, aware applications and how the applications behave and the network tuning. Not just, if you look at the way it's cloud, it's not just building a couple of the data centers. Building a couple of data centers, it's like a central. It's not the way what happened in the distributed computing. If we are thinking, if the supercomputers could have done all the computing, I don't think IT would have been transformed like what it is. The way the PC industry evolved, giving the PC enabled to every person, That's what made the PC industry very successful. Similarly, the way I look at the cloud, having access to every end user and the mass market, like Mr. Upadhyay mentioned, having access to a lot of the people, that's where I see the cloud is going to be successful once it's accessible to such mass production, you know.
Anyone else care to comment?
So I think as Joe pointed out, as well as Mr. Rakesh and Raju pointed out, and Nathan as well, that the way we see it, and it's kind of happening also, is like you have to become a differentiator. You have to tie up with the application. And at the end, what you are delivering from the cloud is a service. It's like application. And that's where basically is like, if you see the revenue stream is kind of shifting from being like people paying for the network is now seen as a small piece of that. It's basically the application, what you are getting out of it. And as Joe pointed out, you go more on the mobile side, as well as like tablets and everything coming in there. What the people care about is like their services are getting delivered. How it get delivered doesn't matter at all. So there is an ecosystem, and that ecosystem requires set of the infrastructure, how you build it. As Mr. Rakesh was pointing out that, hey, now there is a lot of consolidation from the data center is going on. So you consolidate, but you make a bigger data center. But at the same time, like how you kind of like host the services across them and making sure doing the services like delivery from there is at the optimum cost and deliver the optimum user experience. And that's where Joe was pointing out that bringing this like a fabric of like whatever you want to call is network operating systems, which is tied directly into the application. So that way you can differentiate and you know that this service has been delivered and you have met certain set of the SLA. Because without those, you cannot go and charge the people that, oh, you know, you got a service. So that's the differentiation. Applications, network fabric coming together to like deliver that user experience and which you can measure and monitor, and then only you can go and like charge for extra set of the revenues there. And that will be like the innovations for the service provider, because service providers have to keep on innovating. It's like voice is gone. Similarly, data is going away. It's like you can't charge a lot for data. What you are going to charge for? There has to be like next set of the like innovation which is coming in the industry.
The traditional challenge with the argument is the issue around, of course, you know, we'd like as providers to offer value-added services that customers want to pay for. They don't always want to pay for that value add, right? So their perception may not be identical. So it's, I think, a challenge for the industry. We have a couple of minutes left. If there's a question from the audience, we'll be happy to entertain it. I can't really see, so yeah, there's one. Yes, Lou. So the question was, as value moves up the stack, there's a lot of over-the-top players that are capturing a lot of value, and how do we compete effectively with them or collaborate with them? And our time is up, so kind of maybe one answer to that from someone.
I think in this cooperative work, there is a value. You know, there is a food chain, and there is certainly, you know, people, you know, if you look at the cloud, there is infrastructure layer, the platform side, and the, you know, software side. So there is always, I see the potential for a lot of players to contribute, but everybody has to, you know, reinvent themselves to move up. What happened in the same thing in the PC industry, you know, food chain, you know, people doing the chips, people doing the systems, the same thing is going to happen in the, you know, any business. But everybody has evolved, you know, reinvent themselves to go to the next level, to be in this entrepreneurship, you know.
All right, thank you very much. Great panel, and please join me in thanking them for great insights.